trickster, sage, fool, hero. All of these are aspects of the coyote. Now, many different cultures across North America have legends of Coyote, each giving him adventures and stories related to their own way of life, and each casting him in a different light. Today, we're bringing you a few of his misadventures from the Nlaka'pamux tribe. Coyote traveled through a land of lakes and swamps, and his journey made him hungry. But he had brought no food. Stomach growling, he looked up. There above him was a flight of geese. He licked his lips. They would make a fine meal. So he went to the woods and carved himself a club. Then he whistled to the geese. And they paused and circled above him, wondering who had whistled. Then he clapped. But Coyote's clap was no ordinary clap. It was mighty and knocked the geese out of the sky. When the geese tumbled to the ground, Coyote rushed out and began trying to hit them with his club. But they just laughed and continued to flap their wings. Amongst all of the confusion, he couldn't see what he was aiming at. No matter how many times he tried to strike them, he could not hit the wiggling birds. So they righted themselves and started to take off into the sky. As they did so, they beat their wings so the wind from them would carry Coyote with them. As his feet lifted off the ground, he grabbed at the marsh grass, then the shrubs, then the top of the trees. But they just kept lifting him higher and higher. Finally, they dropped him head down in a marsh, where the fox had to come help him out. Lesson: don't mess with geese. They are some ornery avians. That is a true fact. Later, Coyote went to visit his friend the Kingfisher. They sat together, and the Kingfisher explained that he had no food, so he asked Coyote to excuse him for a moment. He then went out, stripped a branch to put fish on, climbed a tree, and with a mighty cry, dove off through a hole in the nearby ice, and returned with a fish. He did this 4 times, and then they cooked the fish and ate their fill. Then one day, Kingfisher went to visit Coyote. Coyote had to tell Kingfisher that he too had no food in the house, but said that if Kingfisher would excuse him for a moment, he would go get some. So he went outside, stripped a branch to put fish on, and then strapped a piece of pitchwood to his nose to serve as a beak. He climbed a tree, issued the Kingfisher's cry, and then dove towards a hole in the ice nearby. And with a crash, like the forest had never heard before, he smashed headfirst into the ice. When Kingfisher was done laughing, he went out and got both of them dinner. Lesson: doing someone else's job is never as easy as it looks. Then, there was a time where Coyote stumbled across a sweat lodge covered by a lovely blanket. Coyote looked around and didn't see anybody nearby. He poked his head into the lodge and didn't see anyone in it either. So, with one more sly look around, he took the blanket and ran off. As he was walking through the forest, wearing the blanket around his shoulders, he started to hear a noise. Again, he looked around, but saw nothing, so he walked on. Then he felt something tickle his leg. Then, something started to buffet him. He started to run, but still saw no one. And all of a sudden, his legs were swept out from under him, and he was picked up into the air, hammered with 1,000 blows, and then tossed unceremoniously face down into the marsh again. He had stolen the blanket off of the wind's sweat lodge. Lesson: don't steal. But that wasn't the only time that Coyote's swift fingers got him into trouble. Once he found a hidden dwelling buried underground. In it were all manner of wonders, and as he rifled through them, he found a comb that he liked. So he took it. But as he was climbing out of the place, the comb started to scratch him. So he cried out, "All right, I'll put you back," and deposited the comb in its former place. But as he put it back, an awl caught his eye. So he took that with him instead. But as he was climbing again, the awl started to stab him, and he threw it down in surprise. Not learning his lesson, he then picked up 2 fine stones used for smoothing arrowheads. But as he climbed yet again, they began to beat him. So now, really not learning his lesson, he got rid of those and picked up a hammer. I think you see where this is going. With one mighty wallop, the hammer laid him out, and when he came to, everything was back in its place. As he ran away without anything, he cursed the tools, shouting that from now on they would be slaves to people and no longer be sentient. And that is why we can use tools so easily today. But perhaps Coyote's greatest gift was fire. One day, from the top of a mountain, he saw a light in the distance and made it known that he planned to go and fetch it. Fox, wolf, and antelope all offered to join him on his quest, and so they set off together. After a great journey, they reached the lodge of the Fire People. Coyote told them that they were travelers who'd come to share their dance. So for the dance, he made a headdress of pine and cedar. That night, the Fire People danced around a low fire. Complaining that they couldn't see in the dim light, Coyote and his companions got the Fire People to make the fire larger. Then they joined the dance. One by one, though, Fox, Wolf, and Antelope all begged off, saying they were too hot and needed to go out to cool themselves. But this was all part of Coyote's plan. For then, Coyote alone danced a wild, thrashing dance, and in doing so, his headdress caught on fire. And when it was ablaze, he ran out of the lodge and tossed it to Antelope, who put it on his antlers and began to run. The Fire People chased them, and one by one caught and killed Coyote's companions. But never before they passed the fire along. Don't worry, these characters seem to die a lot, and they will totally be back later. But at last, Coyote alone was running. He heard the Fire People draw near, so he tossed the headdress into a tree and transformed himself into dung. The Fire People couldn't find him, but they summoned the wind to blow, and the blaze from the trees spread out across the plain. Many died in that fire, but not Coyote. He escaped in the smoke and summoned rain to douse the worst of the blaze. The cost had been great, but now the people had fire. Hence, here we all are, able to tell this tale next to a cozy fire. Thanks, buddy.